And we are also discussing a very interesting topic, which I think of late there has been increase in the number of cases globally. We are talking about suicide among children and adolescents today. And I know most people do not pay attention to that matter, but of late has been increasing because there has been increase in cases all over the world, and especially in the US. And I think sometimes we think that children are okay. We think that we provide them with the basic needs that they are looking out for. So once we provide them with all these things, we assume that they are okay, and we really don't when they go quiet, when they express their displeasure about, so we assume maybe we are giving them the lavish lifestyle they shouldn't even ask for more. Kojo Kakraba Kate, who is an intern at the 37, just Derek, you're welcome. Hello, Derek, can you hear me?
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Okay. So when we talk about suicide in your field of work, how would you define it?
Okay. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And I think that is very, very important that we all understand that we, as vulnerable as our children have emotions just like us, and anything that affects us, anything that we see as traumatic is also likely to affect them. So let's just go straight to the definition of what suicide is. Usually, okay, just to put it in a very short words, suicide is an attempt to overcome emotional pain or suffering. And so these are acts people do to take away or to take their lives in an attempt to overcome the pain or suffering that they're going through, because they feel like it's too much for them to bear. So they think that the obvious way to get out of this pain is to take their lives. Hello?
That's interesting. So do you think that kids go through any painful moments? As kids as this, we always see them as bubbly, we always see them as very happy. Do they go through any painful moments?
Yes, yes, they do. Everybody is born with emotions. Okay. So what happens is that when you are born, when we are very, very young, at from 0 years to like 6 months, what we think that we are an extension of our mother. Okay. So when our mother leaves us, we start crying because we think that this is us and a part of us is leaving. So what we want to do is that we want to cry and gain their attention. That's an emotional reaction. Hello?
So with kids and adolescents, even with adolescents, sometimes we think that they are a bit older, but with kids, because now they say children commit suicide. And sometimes when you hear people like classify classes doing what they expect us to do? Is it that we are not showing them enough affection? What really is the problem? What causes suicide among Hello, Derek.
Please,
Can
I
you hear
didn't
me?
get you well. Can you? Yes, please.
Yeah, what I'm saying is now in the news, you hear that maybe a class 5 people or a class
Hello?
6 people has committed suicide. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can hear you now.
Yeah, has committed suicide. And when you look at their ages, they are about 10 or 11 years. And sometimes you'll be marveled as to why a 10-year-old child or 11-year-old child will take his or her life. Is it that we are not doing our best as parents? Is it that we are not making them happy enough? Is it that we are not showing them affection? Why do you think is a major cause of this suicide among children and adolescents?
Okay, so before I start, I would want us to look at some statistics that we have about adolescents trying to engage in suicide behaviors. Now, they say the appropriate term is to say that they are engaging in suicide behaviors and not to say that they are committing suicide. Because when you say they are committing suicide, then it means you are judging them already. It means they've committed a crime. And so they are engaging in suicide behaviors. For the larger part of it, what we've realized is that suicide is the third leading cause of death in the world. And surprisingly enough, we realize that more teenagers have tried or have attempted suicide behaviors and have died through that more than any chronic disease such as cancer, heart diseases, HIV, AIDS, and birth defects and the likes. And it's also reported that 4 out of 5 cases had clear warning signs, but we didn't pay attention to. And so the warning signs are there. Just that because mental health hasn't really gained grounds in our part, in the world actually, and now it's trying to gain grounds. We see these warning signs, but usually we avoid them. And then the statistics also continues to say that 1 in 5 teenagers have thought or have had suicidal ideations before. And about 82% of them who fail to express remorse and all that during this period after feel remorse. And we should ask ourselves, why does this happen? Hello? Hello?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, Derek.
Okay. Yes. So I was saying that we should ask ourselves, why does this happen? Why do these people try and engage in these behaviors? And we have contextual issues. Some of the contextual issues is that teens are growing. And when they are growing, we realize that they go through psychological changes and physiological changes. And during that period, they become more impulsive because they are going through some emotional or psychological changes. And so when the emotions come, they haven't learned how to control the emotions. And so they think that the emotions that come at that time is going to be present and is going to live on for a very long while. So they would want to engage in some behaviors that would be very detrimental to themselves. As I was talking about, if you are growing up, you realize that we feel like we are attached to our mothers. We move from that stage from when we get to age 1, and then we realize that when standing in the mirror, we can realize that, oh, this is us, and then we are different from our mothers. Then we grow up through that stages, which we get to around age 6 and 7, where we realize also that our emotions that we go through is our emotions and not our parents' emotions. But around age 2, before that time, what you realize is that when a child feels that he wants this or the child is sad, he feels that everybody around him is sad. So I am sad, so everybody's sad. But then when we get to the age 6 and 7, where we are able to realize that, oh, our emotions are different, and we have our emotions, and our parents and people around us have our emotions are also different. But then the problem here is that we are not taught how to control the emotions. And that is why during that stage, the children or the adolescents will think that what they are going through is permanent, and they are not able to realize that these things will come and go. And there are ways that we deal with stresses, or when stresses come, These are signals that we get from the body to help us understand what is going on or protect us. And so this is one of the issues that will lead adolescents to try and engage in suicidal behaviors. In addition to that, what you've seen is that children learn from their mothers or their parents or the people around them. If a child has seen somebody trying to commit suicide before, or has seen somebody trying to engage in suicidal behaviors, the child is also likely to engage in that. And in addition to that, we also realize that peer groups or the friends they have also play a very, very vital role when it comes to individuals or children trying to engage in suicide. That is, when they are exposed to peer groups that are likely to be engaging in recreational drugs, such as substance abuse and the likes, it could put them at risk on also doing or engaging in suicidal behaviors. Also, when they've lost a close person. Everybody goes through that. When you lose a close person, you are likely to have reactions towards it. You'll be depressed at some point in time. You go through the grieving process, and after that, you are able to come out to accept. But because they are children and they've not, or they are adolescents and they haven't gone through the ways of controlling their emotions and the likes, it makes it very, 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 very difficult for them when they get to that part. Also, just as any other illness or any other mental health issues that pops up, what you realize is that most of these people have a family history of it. So if you have a family history of somebody who has tried to engage in suicidal behaviors, you are also prone to it. As I said, you are prone to it. It doesn't mean that you will do it. And so when the right things are put in place to help you, you overcome these stresses that come, and you are able to live your life, grow up to your full potential that you want. And there's also a very, very important one to note that girls do attempt, or the female do attempt suicide behaviors more than men or more than boys. But then boys are likely to succeed more because the research says that usually men use aggression or boys use aggression. And when you're growing up, when you're doing the teenage, that is the peak of your aggression. And so it makes sense that men or boys would likely engage less in suicidal behaviors, but then when they try it, they are likely to succeed than women.
Okay, so if I heard you right, doesn't mean that all those children who commit suicide might have a little bit of a mental health problem? Or will a normal child, what will make a normal child who does not have any mental health problem commit suicide?
Okay, as I said, mental, or as I've said before, mental problems, okay, mental health issues pop up anytime.
They are not able to articulate their feelings.
Hello?
Yeah, please go on.
Please, I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, my question was, is it that any child who commits suicide has a little bit of a mental health problem? Or is it that they are not able to articulate their feelings to their parents? That is why they think that if they take their lives, it will be a solution to whatever problem that they are facing.
Okay. So just to make things clear here, okay, everybody goes through mental health issues or mental health problems. So there's a difference between a mental health problem and a mental health disorder. Everybody have emotions, and at a point in time, our mental health would be a bit at stake when we go through stresses. So just as we adults go through stresses, and at some point in time we get irritable, we get frustrated and all that, we see this in children also. So it doesn't necessarily have to be that you have a mental health or you've been diagnosed with a mental health disorder before you would engage in that. But what you've seen is that people who engage in suicidal behaviors are likely to be depressed or are likely to be having any form of mood disorder, which could lead them to that. So yes, at a point in time, we all go through stresses. And so when the stresses become overwhelming and we think that suicide is the permanent solution to take away these issues, then it puts them at risk of engaging.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So at what point in time, as a parent, will I be able to detect that it's prone to suicide, like my child might commit suicide? At what point? What are some of the actions that they? Yeah, Derek, please, did you hear the question?
Yes, please. But I think your line is not really helping. But I think if I heard you right, you were asking at what point in time can we be able to pick up these signs that, oh, maybe our child is going through some emotional issues or psychological issues and is at
Yeah,
risk.
that may lead to suicide. Yeah.
Okay. So yes, what happens is that you know your son or you know your child better than anybody else. And frankly, parenting is a career. Let me put it that way. It's a career. It's a very, very difficult thing to do. And parents, nobody has been given a blueprint to how parenting should be done. But then we are all trying, and people are putting in their efforts to show care and affection. But then what happens is that in our part of the world, it's hard for us to understand or focus on emotional needs of people and the likes. But then, as important as it is, you know who you are dealing with, you know your child, how your child used to behave. So what I want to say is that you would have to see a paradigm shift from his normal behavior to some form of behaviors that you realize that may be detrimental. And so any shift that you see from your child's behavior, maybe your child used to be bubbly and all that, but then you realize that nowadays he's so depressed or he's in a depressed mood. And in a depressed mood means that he feels like he's not worth it. He feels like he doesn't want to go out. He doesn't want to come out again. He doesn't want to engage with people and all that. Or maybe your son was somebody that is a very quiet person. Your daughter is somebody that was a very quiet person who didn't want to engage a lot. And that's who he is or who she is. But then you realize that you've seen a very, very high change, or you've seen a very, very significant change where he's now engaging in risky behaviors. He wants to go out there and jump walls. He wants to go out there and engage in behaviors that you realize that could lead to his or her passing away. And also you realize that perhaps he's start engaging in drugs or start abusing drugs and the likes, and your son feeling like, or your daughter feeling like he's a burden to you, or he feels that he has disappointed you in a way, and you realize that his behavior towards you has changed, he's having low self-esteem, not wanting to engage with anybody, or just feels that he doesn't belong here. And part of these things happen. And when they happen, the way a manner will go around it would be very, very important. So if your child at a point in time realizes that this is what he's going through and is able to open up to you and you're able to accept that yes, even though he or she is young, he goes through these things, and you are willing to accept him or her and help your son or daughter find help. Very, very important. So yes, you see depressed mood, you see that perhaps he would have increased drug use or is abusing drugs. You realize that he's having thoughts or telling you that he wants to die. And when these things are happening, you realize that maybe he's having too much of sleep or little sleep, and he's perhaps writing letters to you, telling you about the fact that he's worthless and he doesn't think that he's supposed to live. So the signs are there. You realize that he will be showing these signs, but the most important is that you see a paradigm shift from his old behavior into a new behavior that could be very, very, very detrimental to his health, and or showing signs of not able to cope with stresses that come. So yes, these are the signs that I've mentioned, but the key thing is that you realize that there's a paradigm shift in his or her behavior.
Okay. So supposing a child does not show any of these signs and is not even willing to talk to you, how would you be able to identify it? Because sometimes I don't know whether they pretend or they just want to cover up something. You see that even a day before somebody commits suicide, if maybe after the suicide, when you talk to the family, they will tell you that a day before the person committed the suicide, they were just having a lovely chat. Nothing showed that it would be possible for that person to commit suicide. Everything was normal. The person didn't say anything negative or anything leading that will get you alarmed. So in such situations, how would you be able to identify that this person might want to commit suicide?
Okay. Usually, there are signs. The signs are there. It's just that we don't pay attention to them. And as I said, in our part of our world, we don't really, really value mental health that much. And so when these signs are even popping up, we don't pay attention to them. We think that these are normal behaviors, or your son or your daughter is not supposed to be feeling these things. And so in a very, very typical African home, when you go and tell your mom that, Mom, I think that I'm depressed, your baby will question, or they will ask you a question. Do you know what depression is? What are you talking about? You can't be depressed. I'm paying your school fees. I'm giving you money. I am providing for you food and all that. What are you talking about? What do you mean by you are depressed? You are not depressed. Leave and go. And so they are the signs. They come to us, or they come to our parents, or they come to their uncles and all that. But then just that we don't pay attention to it. We think that as children, they don't have emotions, and even if they have it, they have to suck it up and then move on with life. So the signs are there, they are glaring. You see the changes in their behavior and all that, but then you don't pay attention to it. That's what will lead to your son or your daughter trying to engage in suicidal behaviors. And so the signs are there, just that we don't pay attention enough.
Okay, thank you. Also, well, can our parents, can our actions also lead to suicide? Like in terms of, we saying maybe when they bring their exam papers home, the kind of words that we tell them, when they do something wrong, the way and manner Hello, Derek.
Hi.
Hello, Derek.
Yes. Please, can you hear me?
Hello, Derek. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, please, I can hear you.
Yeah, please, did you hear the question?
Yes, please. If I heard you, you were asking if the way we relate to our children can also put them at risk of suicidal behaviors.
Yes, please.
Okay. I think that it's important that we realize that we or our parents play a very vital role in the mental health of our children. But then I don't blame our parents when it comes to these things because they were also not taught how to handle emotional issues. As I said, at 7 to age 9, where we realize that our emotions are different from our parents. And they also realized that when they were young, but then the society didn't help to help us overcome these things when they happen. You are left on your own to behave the way you want. And so you realize that when this happens, people have bad coping mechanisms when it comes to mental health problems or mental health issues when they pop up. They themselves have not been taught. How can they teach you? And so certain words that you use on your child is trying to develop. You're trying to come into a world where he can unleash his potential or her potentials. And now he brings an exam paper home, and then your child doesn't make the expectations you want. And then you use a word like wabong. I'm paying your school fees and you're wasting my money. You don't deserve to be in school. You have to go and sell dog chains and the likes. Yes, good.
I think we've lost Derek. Let's wait for him. It might be network problems. Whilst we are waiting for him, I think we need to be mindful of the kind of words that we use on our kids. If we tell our kids that they are good for nothing, I think it goes a long way to affect them. They lose their self-esteem. They think they are valueless. They think that there's nothing good that can come out of them. I think we need to encourage them, even if they don't perform well, even if their academic performance is very low. I think there's a need for us to encourage them, but we shouldn't just use hurtful words or words that will depress them, or words that will make them feel like they are just good for nothing. Okay, I think Derek is back. Derek, can you please continue?
Okay. I don't know why today the network is really, really bad, but let's just hope that it doesn't happen that way again. Yes, as I was saying, words hurt and words really, really cut deep. And you being hurt by somebody that you really cherish or you really love cuts you deeper. So your child is out there, your child has gone to school, the child is battling with maybe some performance issues, and then your child comes, and instead of you trying to find better ways to help your child realize that you can do more, you have a lot of potential in you. And yes, this may be the worst beginning that you may have, but then you can overcome and instill discipline and have positive reinforcements and the likes to help the child overcome these challenges that they are going through. We abuse them emotionally by using harsh words on them. And this could lead to your son or your daughter feeling like he doesn't measure up and having low self-esteem and putting them at risk of suicidal behaviors. In addition to that, when your child comes, as I already said, he comes to you and says that I'm going through some pain, I'm going through some emotional difficulties. And then we say that you can't go through that because you don't have the right to go through that, because what do you do at home? You just sleep, you eat, you go to school. That is your role and that's your job you're supposed to do. So why didn't you go through all these things? we tend to ignore their emotional needs. And when emotional needs are ignored, it becomes an issue. You are not an island. And so when you feel like you are alone and nobody understands you, you are likely to engage in suicidal behaviors. And so, yes, the way we act and the way we move with our children, our words that we use on them, also could put them at high risk of engaging in suicidal behaviors.
Okay, thank you. This economic crisis and want them to live in a certain way. We all want to procure or a future for them. And in doing so, I think we have taken up careers, so many careers or so many jobs, conversation with them. We are always on the go. It's either the man is somewhere, the woman is somewhere, or they are basically left in the care of maybe house helps and other people to rest of them.
Yes, so as the host was saying, what happens is that when we are engaging with our children, we realize that we want to engage them in a way that we are able to provide everything for them. We give them a kind of life that we think they should be living because perhaps we didn't get that. And so we want to create the opportunities for them, or we want to give them the luxury of having a lot of opportunities in life. And because of that, what happens is that we engage in more work and work and work and work and work and work. And we think that providing these material things for them would help them and make them better people. And in making them better people, it means that they have everything that they want. And when they have everything they want, it means that everything or their emotional needs were going to be taken care of. Yes, as human beings, we have needs. We have the physical needs, we have the basic needs that we want, and that will help us survive. But then we forget that, or in most part of Africa, we forget that emotional needs are also very, very important. And when you're not emotionally stable, you are not going to get good mental health to overcome the stresses that would come. And so, in as much as we are trying to provide for them physically, we most of the time ignore their emotional needs. And these emotional needs are left to perhaps peers and social media and the likes to help them cure it. And if they fall in the wrong hands, they can be detrimental to the mental health of our children and mental health of our friends who are young, of our colleagues, of our siblings. And that is not good. And I know that that is not what any husband, any wife would want for the child, or any parent would want for the child. And so, in as much as we are trying to provide for their physical needs, we overlook their emotional needs, and this could lead them to engaging in some suicidal behaviors, which might be very, very detrimental to them.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Derek. Okay, so supposing I have a child and maybe he or she has ever tried to take his or her life before, seek for medical help, or do I have to take him to the church for the pastor to pray for him or her? What are some of the necessary steps I can take after I have witnessed a suicidal attempt? Thank you.
Well, I think it's important that we realize that human beings are both psychological beings, we are physical beings, and we also have emotional needs. And in having emotional needs, to some extent, we are also spiritual beings. And being spiritual beings, it means that any way that we can find to help solve issues, I think we should explore it. And I don't think that going to see your pastor is a wrong thing to do, because your pastor could serve the spiritual need as well when it comes to helping people overcome these mental health issues that happen. However, it's very, very important that you realize that this is also a psychological issue. And it being a psychological issue, it's important that you seek the professional's help. And so by seeking the professional's help, I mean that it is important that you seek psychotherapy, see the clinical psychologist. If you can even see a counselor who is certified, who is a professional to help, I think is very important. And when it has to deal with substance abuse and the like, which is leading to the suicidal behaviors, it's important that you also see a psychiatrist to help in this regard. And the best way to help people who are going through all these things is that we do a combined therapy, where combined therapy means that we are engaging both the psychiatrist and then the psychotherapist to help. As the psychotherapist is giving the medications, if it is necessary, the psychologist will also be trying to modify behaviors and also help these children who are going through these hard times. And we should also understand that it's very, very important as an intervention to pay very close attention to our children. As I said, we ignore their emotional needs and are trying to compensate with the physical needs or the material needs. And we also understand that we should demonstrate love to them and increase their acceptance even when they do something wrong. And we all have faults in our stars. We are not perfect. Just as you are not perfect, your son or daughter is also not perfect. And so when they go through these things, it's important that you do not chastise them or you do not have stigma surrounding them, but rather you embrace them and realize that perhaps you were ignoring their emotional needs, and that's what led to what happened. Yes, I know you'll be surprised when it happens, but it's important that we know that we play a role in all these things when they happen. And so in as much as we are seeking the professional's help, the first step is to pay attention to the adolescents we are living with so that we can pick out these cues when it's happening. And when it's important that we see the psychologist or the psychiatrist to help in managing these things, we see them so that they provide the optimal care and functional medicine to help our children overcome these issues when they go through. And what you have to realize that children or adolescents who have tried attempting this or attempting or engaging in suicidal behaviors also have the tendency of doing it again when they grow up. So yes, in their teens or adolescents, things became so hard for them, they were not able to cope, and then they tried in engaging in that behaviors. Yes, maybe we chastised them and then they stopped. When it happens again, what is happening is that they are likely to go back to what they did because they haven't learned the coping strategies to overcome the stresses when they come. And that's why it's important that you engage the psychologist to help their team have some better coping strategies when things pop up or when stresses pop up, so that they can be able to go through the pain, the struggle, and find purpose and meaning in their lives when they grow up.
Okay, thank you. So let's say I just come back from work and I meet a suicide scenario and the person hasn't done it. Let's say I closed from work, I got in and I see my child with a knife to his throat, or I see my child with some mixed concoction and is just about to drink it. Do I have to scream? Do I have to run out and call for help? What do I have to do? What is the immediate action that I have to take?
I think that in African setting, our first reaction is, hey, that will be our first reaction. But then you should realize that your son is doing this or your daughter is doing this because he feels emotionally stressed and cannot cope, especially if it's not coming from substance use or substance abuse. If it's coming from substance abuse and you think that at the point in time, your child is not being using his intellect or not being logical at that point in time, maybe you can rush in and take the concoction. But then when your child is going through the pain and wants to take his life, you've seen a note or a letter, I don't think that the first line of action is to be scream, because when you scream at him, yes, you're screaming of shock. But then when you scream at him, what is happening is that your child is likely to feel judged. That they're not ye, and this is not how to handle it, and you could have done better. And yes, the shock got to you. Yes, your son could have done better and all that. But at the point in time when you are screaming, your child is likely to feel again that, here you go again, judging him or her. So yes, you've seen it. The best thing is to get close to your son and daughter or daughter. The best thing is to try and get the concoction that he's mixing far away. You sit with him, try and tell him that you understand what he's going through. Like, normalize his reaction, okay? Or normalize how he's feeling. But what is important is that in normalizing how he's feeling, you tell him that this is not the right way to address issues. And so you screaming wouldn't be the first way. The first way is to show love and support and care. Try and convince him or her to put what he's doing down by being there for him, by being present for him. Yes, maybe he might accuse you that you've not been there, you have been so hurtful to him and all that. At that point in time, accept it, that yes, you played a role. And in accepting it that you played a role, your child would realize that, yes, indeed, I am attempting an act that could be detrimental to me, but the person who was the cause of it at that point in time is accepting it. That yes, he played a role in what is happening. Usually what they want is, they want validation. That yes, what you did to him or her was wrong, or what is happening to him or her isn't right. And so you want to help him or her get through it. And so showing love and care at that point in time is very, very important. And when even you are accused, accept that yes, you played a role, just to get close to your son or your daughter. And then you seek medical help to check if maybe he has cut on himself or he has tried it before. He's already done it or something like that. If he's already done it and he comes to meet it, it's important that you just rush him or her to the hospital for medical appraisal or for medical checkups to help in the management. But then if he or she hasn't done it, it's important that you get close emotionally or psychologically to help your child overcome this.
Okay, thank you. Like we mentioned earlier on, as busy as we are, we know nowadays every parent has a busy schedule. We are always on the go. So how many times in a week should I have a conversation with my children in order not for them to feel like I have neglected them? How many times?
Every day. You're supposed to be present in your child's life every day. You're supposed to be there, even though you have a busy schedule and all that. You're supposed to make time for them, because you say you are struggling because of them. Yes, you are going in and out, you're trying to support their family, but they don't just have physical needs, they have emotional needs as well. Who is going to fill that gap? It's us. But then I understand to some extent we are also not taught. And so we propagate that. We continue that we think that providing the material needs will make our sons or daughters or our teenagers that we live with feel okay, and that would suffice their emotional needs. But then it's important that you are present, just as you are present at work because you want the money, you should also be present in the child's life because you want the child's emotional needs to be met.
Okay, thank you. So with that, with just what you have said, how do we involve the stakeholders? I'm talking about parents, church elders, the society as a whole, even the school. How do we involve them? How do we let them know the importance of maybe having a conversation with them, being in their lives, engaging in whatever they do? How do we engage them?
Okay.
In fighting against child suicide, how do we engage them?
The best thing we can do is creating awareness and letting them or people understand, the society understand that, yes, our children do have emotional needs just as adults. And we should help them to be able to talk about their emotional needs and not feel judged or not feel like they are outliers. And so awareness and education and trying to be empathic towards children is the way to go. So the first one is creating awareness. And in creating awareness, our churches, our schools, we should accept that, yes, children also go through this emotional uphill, up and down, and all that, just as adults. And in going through that, maybe we are grown and maybe we have learned how to control it, but they are young and they don't know how to do it. And so we should help them when they come with their emotional needs and not neglect them. And so creating the awareness that children have emotional needs is very important. And from there, we can move on to supporting them. And if it becomes serious or if it becomes overwhelming that we cannot engage them, then it's important that we also seek psychological help and also seek mental specialist help. So for example, the psychiatrists, if available, and in some cases, the psychiatric nurses, if available.
Is there any medical checkup to detect that my child has a mental health problem or mental health something? Is there any, can I just, like we always do a random checkup in the hospital, can I take my child to the hospital to do a random checkup?
I think that just as any physical illness that we realize that we are seeing that, oh, we have how do you call it? We are feeling pains here and all that. Sometimes you might not feel the pain, but you might just want to walk in and then have an overall checkup of it. I think that it's important that sometimes you go to some psychological evaluations. And so you can just walk in and talk to a mental health professional to really assess if perhaps your child is going through some emotional needs that you are not seeing. But then I think that everything starts from you or starts from the parent, because when it comes to mental health issues, when it comes to psychological issues and all that, the key thing is paying attention. And so if you're able to pay attention to your child at the point in time, then you can see that, yes, your child is going through some mental health issues. And so coming off as, is there any mental health checkup that we can do? The checkup starts from you, the parent. Before then you can come to the psychologist or the psychiatrist to help. And so, yes, we can play a role of trying to see if your child is psychologically sound and all that. But I think that the most important way is paying attention to your child or the adolescent you are staying with.
Okay, thank you. Please, is there any question that someone wants to ask or I'm gonna speak? Who has been suicidal before? How do I convince my child to maybe stay away from that child? And with the fear that the hello, Derek. Can you hear me? Hello, Derek. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, I can hear you.
Okay, so if my child's friend has been suicidal before, how do I convince my child to stay off? How do I convince my child to stay off that particular friend, with the fear that maybe that friend might be Derek, please, did you hear the question?
If I heard you right, you said that
Hello, Derek.
how do you convince your child to stay away from somebody who has tried or who has tried or are engaged in suicidal behaviors? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Then again, if you look at it, then it means we will still be perpetuating the stigma that my child should stay away from this person because he has engaged in suicidal behaviors before. And that puts the child again who has tried, who has engaged in suicidal behaviors at risk of doing it again. And so, as much as possible, you engage your child to be supportive to the friend who has engaged in such behaviors, because perhaps he might be feeling alone and has been going through some emotional turmoil, which your child might not even understand. Yes, I get it that your child could pick it up from there, but it's also a risky thing to just allow the child to be alone. So if everybody is saying stay away from this child, then we put the child who has engaged in that such behavior again at risk of doing it because he might feel lonely and all that. And so it's important that we bring out our children or our adolescent child to understand that everybody goes through mental health issues. And when they're going through mental issues, suicide is not an option. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary condition. And so we are supposed to imbibe that in our children or our adolescent children so that they understand that, yes, people who go through that perhaps may be going through some issues and all that, but then that's not the solution to it. And when they go through that, all they need is support and not running away from them. So it's our job to let our child understand that suicide is a temporary or it's a permanent solution, to a temporary problem. And so that is not the way to go. However, when somebody engages in that and we know them, we should be supportive and nice to them instead of running away from them.
Okay. Thank you. You know, in our culture, the typical Ghanaian, I mean, you can't just walk to your dad and tell him, I want to have a conversation with you. Or you can't just walk to your mom and tell her, I want to have a conversation with you. And even if there are certain decisions concerning your choice of course, your even career, so many things you might not even have a say in the course that you would be doing. So how do we advise parents to involve their children in decision making? Because we always decide for them. We always create an environment where it's like we are not approachable at all. They can't come to us for any conversation, or like they are not our friends. Why should we converse with them? We don't say it verbally, but our actions portray things. How do we convince, or how do we advise or even such parents? Thank you.
Okay, so as I said, this is what we have been doing, or this is what we've been doing since Adam in Africa, that children do not have a say in their lives, and we think that they are not going to the point where they can make logical decisions from themselves. Yes, the biology supports that to some extent, or the science supports that to some extent, but some children, or every child, has the potential to be making the decisions for him or herself that feels that it's best. So I think that it's important that when these things happen, or when we have the opportunity to choose things for our children, I think we should allow them the opportunity to do it themselves, but rather guide them. Where guiding here means that we are not choosing for them, that is what they are supposed to do. We are supposed to be able to lay the pros and cons of everything that they want to do out there for them, and then let them know that probably this is the best solution to the problem that you are going through. We should let them feel that they are making this decision for themselves, and not somebody making the decision for him or her. So, for example, if you go, everybody wants to be autonomous. And so when something comes and it's about us, we don't want people to be choosing for us. We want to be choosing for ourselves. But what we can do as parents to be helping is that, as much as possible, that we want to guide them, and in making, or want to guide them in making dangerous things carefully. We are supposed to provide the enabling environment for every behavior that they engage in. And so, what behavior do you want to engage in? These are the risk factors that you are going through, and this also the benefits that you get. I get it. It's a tough one to do, going up and down with your child, especially an adolescent who would want to be challenging and all that. And it's part of the growing process, because they want to challenge the status quo or the norm and make rules for themselves, create beliefs for themselves. And it's important that we don't squash that ability to question by choosing for them, and this is what you're supposed to do, and I know what is right for you. I understand that you have experiences than them, but you should allow them to make decisions from themselves. And in making decisions for themselves, what you can do is that you provide the best possible opportunities, or lay down the best possible ways that they can do things, the pros and cons, and suggest that you think that this will be the best for them, and give them reason why you think this is going to be the best for them. That's the better way of approaching our adolescents, rather than just not having a conversation and just choosing for them, and we say that I know what is good for you, just do it. I don't think anybody wants that in his life, that people will just tell them what to do and they're supposed to do it. Even as adults, we go through that, and we don't like that. And so it's important that we, as parents, are able to realize that they have emotions, they have their brain also works, but then we are supposed to guide them in their decisions. And in guiding them in their decisions, as I said, what we have to do is that we lay down the pros and cons on every behavior or every action they want to take. and then suggest what you think is the best for them to help them overcome any other issues that they battle with.
Okay, thank you. I know you've said a lot about solutions in your submission. You combined it with other with the courses. Can you please give us more solutions to this suicidal behavior? I know that those who have succeeded in committing suicide, there's nothing that we can do. But what about those that attempted? What are some of the solutions to it?
So for those that have attempted, as I said, we are supposed to be supportive. And being supportive, it means that we are supposed to be there for them emotionally and also seek professional help when they are going through that. So we as parents, we are supposed to be very vigilant of our children's emotions, just as we are very vigilant about their biological needs and also their material needs. So one, we should be vigilant about their needs, psychological needs. In addition to that, we should also show support and care. In addition to that, we should not stigmatize against them or should not stigmatize them. Stigma or feeling disappointed in them is likely to put them into the circle again of engaging in that behavior. So these are the three main things that we are supposed to do as parents or brothers or sisters of people who have tried and attempt or tried in engaging in suicidal behaviors.
Hello, Derek.
Hello?
Yeah. What are some of the supports that we can give to parents whose children have committed suicide? What supports can we offer them?
Yeah, you remember that when we were discussing, you said something on the lines of how do I convince my child not to go to a friend who has tried? Yes. So one main thing is the support. We should be there for them. It's also a hard time for the parents, just as it's a hard time for the child. So frankly, what we can do for them is that we support them through the thick and thin. And supporting them through the thick and thin, if it is important that maybe to some extent we check up on them, we call them, ask them how they are doing and how the child is faring, and also see or try and pinpoint if they're also going through some emotional issues that may need psychological assistance or a professional to help. It's important that we convince them to be able to go and seek this help, because what we have studied or what we have seen is that when one person commits or when person engages in suicidal behavior and succeeds, what happens is that it doesn't affect just the family, but it affects 144 people. And so it's not just affecting the family, it would affect the church members, it would affect the community, it would affect friends, it would affect people around them. And when this happens, it could lead other people into some form of depression also. And they could continue the cycle of people engaging in suicidal behaviors and the likes. So the main thing here is we support them and also be vigilant and also help them when they're going through these things, seek psychological support.
Okay. Thank you. Please, any question or submission from those online? Any question or submission from those online? Okay, Derek, I think if there are no questions or submission, you can give us your final words, then we bring the program to an end.
Okay, so yes, we talk about suicide among adolescents. And what I want us, if we didn't take anything from what we discussed and all that, we should realize that children, as young as they are, also have emotions. And we should not ignore their emotional needs. As much as we are trying to provide for them physically, it's important that we pay close attention to their emotional needs as well. Because when their emotional needs are not met, they are likely to go through mental health issues, and that could lead them into engaging in suicidal behaviors, which is not just detrimental to them, but also detrimental to the people around them. So to end it all, what we have to understand is that suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. And all of us go through this problem. Nothing is stagnant. And the main purpose of life is to be able to go through the struggle whilst you are suffering. And in going through the struggle whilst you are suffering, it means that we should try and help each and everybody develop high psychological capital to overcome these issues when they come up. And so we as a country, or we as a continent, should realize that mental health issues are real, and we should try and increase the awareness for people who are going through this and help them overcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Derek. Then again, I would want to say that Derek is an intern at the 37 Military Hospital. He's a clinical psychologist, and we will post his details on YouTube if anyone would want to get into contact with him. I think he can go a long way to help you if you have any psychological issues. The little that I can add to Derek's submission is, in as much as we are struggling to build a comfortable life or a better future for our children, we should make time for them. We should be able to, even if it's 30 minutes in a day, we should be, or even 5 minutes or 10 minutes, the least time that we get, we should be able to have a conversation with them. We should know how their day went. We should know the activities that they embark on. We should know everything in their lives. Sometimes it's so disheartening to ask parents or engage parents in a conversation and they don't know anything that goes on in their children's life. They have absolute no idea of what goes on in their children's life. They don't even know their friends. They know nothing about their own kids. And it's sad. Such people, when they are going through a lot, you will not be able to detect it early because you don't have a conversation with them. And some might think that these children's suicide, it's not happening. It's really happening. It's really happening. Kids get depressed and they go into, like, they get into depression and they sometimes feel like committing suicide. They want to take their lives. No matter what you give them, no matter the luxury life that you think you are providing for them, they still get depressed at one point in time. So please, let's have time for them. Let's engage them as much as we can. Let's pay attention to their actions, their attitudes, their lifestyle, so that we'll be able to detect it very early in order not to lose our kids. May God bless you for making time with us. We will come your way again next month. We normally have this the third Saturday in every month. So we'll see you again in December. Have a nice evening. Bye.
Bye.